Call's going right now, and we begin in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and say hello to Kyle. Hey, Kyle, you're first up.
Eddie, what's up, man? How are you, sir?
I'm good, thanks, man.
Awesome. Hey, I just want to. What do you really think now in the whole Van Halen deal? I mean, they don't seem like they're doing anything. I don't hear anything, and I'm always looking. Van Halen news desk the whole bit. If you had to guess, I mean, what do you think? I mean, and even if Sammy did come back, is it going to take Michael coming back, or is it going to be like, no, we're going to keep Wolfgang and we'll let you back in? Or what do you think?
I don't think Sammy would come back without Michael. I think it's a package deal. First of all,
I think so too.
I don't see that happening. I also don't know if Sammy would come back or if they are even thinking about that. It's weird, man. You talk about the Van Halen news desk, which is, of course, an unofficial source. It's not sanctioned by the band in any way, but they often have good information. But it's a fan site. And the frustrating thing for Van Halen fans is that they are so tight-lipped. They don't talk. They don't do interviews. There's no real hard information out there until they want to put it out. And that's fine. That's their prerogative. But they're a notoriously tight-lipped camp. I mean, I can tell you for decades I've tried to get interviews with those guys, any of them, even Wolfgang, any of them, to talk about anything. And they just don't do interviews. I mean, outside of Eddie doing the occasional guitar magazine interview, which is always about his gear and his guitars and what have you, it's impossible to find out what they're thinking. And there's a lot of speculation that Roth might be done again. He had his rough spots the last go around, but of course they still filled the buildings, which is really all that matters to most in the business side. And then there was this rumble when Eddie and Sammy exchanged cordial tweets that maybe something was in the works. But, Sammy's almost 70, and although he can still certainly sing, if they want to go down that road again, they can't wait much longer. I mean,
they need to hurry up and do it.
They got to do it. And the other thing is, apparently Wolfgang has a studio record, his own solo record, completely done. So he's going to be launching that, I would think, at some point. And with that is going to come the need to do some sort of press. So he's going to have to be coached up on how to handle Van Halen questions. So I don't know. I mean, I would be lying if I told you that I knew what their plan was, if any, at this point. I honestly don't know.
Right. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
It's always interesting, Kyle, in Van Halen world. And I mean, it's thank you for the call. It's always a crapshoot. If you think back into Van Halen's history, even going back to I remember the 1984 album, and there was no real build-up to that album coming out. And then all of a sudden, just one day, radio just got Jump sent to them in the mail, and everybody was playing Jump. They've always done stuff very sort of stealth, very covert, and operated very differently in that area of communication with media and fans and what have you. Even if you follow their official accounts, like Eddie Van Halen has an official Twitter. I mean, there's hardly ever anything posted on it. There's an official band Twitter. Very little information comes out on that. So it's very, very cryptic with those guys. It always has been, and you never know what the thinking is. But I've said this a million times. There is no band that I can think of that has a catalog of massively popular hit songs like the Van Halen songs with Sammy Hagar that is sitting there completely ignored. You're not talking about the era with Sammy having a couple hits. You're talking about that era selling millions of albums, generating like a dozen huge songs. And it just sits. Van Halen currently with Roth, of course, will never play one song from it. That portion of the Van Halen catalog has never been addressed as far as remasters and reissues. And it's crazy. You could see that being the case. Like, with Motley Crue, you can see they did one album with Karabi and it wasn't successful, and you could see them kind of glossing over that record, even though it's a real good record. Okay, it was kind of a blip in their whole history. That's not a diss on John. That's just the truth. It was a couple years out of their history that was not successful, and it was one record. Hagar, Van Halen's like a dozen hit songs. I was in a deli, or I was in a water park with my kids yesterday in Pennsylvania. Took my kids to this indoor water park, Kalahari in Pennsylvania. I was talking about it earlier in the show tonight. I'm still sore. I can't move. But it was a blast. We had a great time. But they play music, inside. And they played Dreams by Van Halen. Every day you're hearing those Hagar songs. Love Walks In, Why Can't This Be Love, Finish What You Started, Pound Cake. Goes on and on and on. Love Walks In. And none of it's just a massive catalog of songs just sitting there completely unserved. Never to be heard live again unless Sammy rejoins Van Halen. And who knows if there's ever even a consideration for that. I think that the heat has thawed between them maybe somewhat, but I don't think there's any dialogue. I don't think there's anything imminent. And if it's going to happen, it's got to happen soon.